بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. آه، نكمل السيشن بتاع الانهيرتنس. موضوع ليه علاقة بالسيشن انهيرتنس، لو ليه علاقة بموضوع البروتين سينثيسيس وهو موضوع الفاريشن. وطالما هنتكلم عن الفاريشن النهارده، فهنتكلم معاه كمان، شايف نتكلم معاه على الميتيشنز، وكمان نتكلم على موضوع الانتيبيوتيك ريزيستنس. هناخد 3 مواضيع بسيط كده ان شاء الله. معلوماتهم بسيطة، نفهمهم كويس، بيجوا في الامتحان كتير، very common انهم يجوا في الامتحان، فلازم نركز على ال3 مواضيع دول، مهمين جدا. الفاريشن يعني ايه، او الاختلاف in between in individual in the same species. طبعا كانترودكشن للموضوع، انه كلنا عارفين انه لما 2 6 سيلز، او اللي احنا عرفنا بقى في السيشن بتاع الانهيرتنس ان اسمهم جاميتس او الجاميتس. when 2 6 cell، يعني for example simply السبيرم سيل والاوفم سيل combine to form a new diploid cell. وقلنا diploid cell يعني ايه؟ diploid cell اللي هي is a cell that contain full number of chromosome, double number of chromosome. يعني for example in human being it contain 46 chromosome. طيب ولما تو جاميتس يتحدوا مع بعض، يعني السبيرم او الاوفم بتاعتهم مع بعض، بيعملوا لي حاجه اسمها زيجوت. ودي ديبلويد سيل، يعني in case of human يعني containing 46 chromosome. This is seen across species, all species which reproduce sexually, as every living thing is genetically different. طبعا زي ما قلنا قبل كده، انه الجاميتس او السكس سيل دي containing genetic material from both parents. وده بيجوا نتيجة، لو رجعنا للدرس بتاع السيل ديفيجن، بيجوا نتيجة الميوزس. برافو، الميوزس اكسلنت. فده بيؤدي إلى genetic variation، يعني because there is crossing through the process of crossing over of chromosomes، بيتم مشاركة sharing of the genetic material، وsharing of genetic material ده بيؤدي إلى different genetic material in the generations and offspring. and عشان كده بنقول الجاميتس are genetically different from each other because each gamete is coming from one parent with specific genetic characteristics, and also because fusion of the sperm and egg at fertilization process, معناها fertilization, is completely randomly occurring. فعشان كده الفيوجن بتاع السبرم والايج is randomly occurring, so there will be genetic variation in the offspring in the coming generation. So if we need to define variation, it is the difference within a species, the differences between individual within specific species. It can be caused by two main ways. لو انا سالت اي حد فيكم ازاي تحصل الفاريشن، how the variation will occur، فطبعا هيقول لي ده زي ما لسه ملاحظه قايلين، انه نتيجه انه الفيوجن of gametes at fertilization, and this gametes is coming from parents, and the parents have different genetic characteristics, different genetic material, so there will be a genetic variation because of gametes are genetically different. So the cause of variation between in the individual in the same species maybe have a genetic base, maybe caused by genetic causes, or it can be environmental, يعني caused entirely by the environment, or both of them. يعني there is a genetic variation and there is environmental factor that it changed the expression of this genetic of this gene in the individual in this species. So it is a mixture of both gene and environmental. In most cases, it is a mixture. It's not only genetic only, and not only environmental factors only, but a mixture of genetic and environmental factor, and we'll explain this shortly after a while. This is often popularly called in nature versus nurture. يعني the nature, the environment, and the genetic material versus nurture. يعني nurture يعني التنشئة. And how this individual are grown up or developed within their environment. So we have as a first uh, factors that affect variation is genetic variation. So example of genetic variation, as we told, like blood group. Some people has blood group A, blood group B, blood group as we take yesterday in the inheritance session. It is an example of the codominance inheritance, and like eye color, like gender in case of sex inheritance, and so on. The different characteristics of a human being is an example of genetic variation between humans. These genetic variations are coming from because gametes are genetically different from each other and they are fusing together randomly. This will lead to this genetic variation. So if you ask it in the exam, what is the base of this genetic variation? Why is there is genetic variation? Because gametes, which is a sex cell from parents, are genetically different and they are fusing at the process called fertilization. They are fusing randomly. This will lead to more and ensuring more variation. And the outcome will be genetically different from the parents. And environmental variation, as again, two factors are controlling the variation in the individual in a specific species is genetic variation, and we know now what's the base of the genetic variation, and environmental variation. Environmental variation, simply it is environmental factors that affect the human being in their environment. So simply you can say that it is the outside of the organism. It is not the inside. Inside the organism are the genetic or the genome, the genetic material that the individual, for example, in case of human being, the person take from his parents. And the environmental factors simply they are the outside factors that would affect the phenotype or the shape or the characteristics of the organism, or for example, in case of human beings, person. And so can include factor like environmental factor like climate, like diet, like sunshine, like nutrition, like exposure for accident, like lifestyle, education, and so on. So examples are more of environmental affection of the human being is more and more. So I'm giving you here only four common examples that can make it easy to you to understand. So like if a person exposed for an accident, this accident may affect the growth of this person and may affect may lead to loss of a part of his body. So this will affect his growth. The accident may cause this person to be wheelchaired. So he will lose. He will not grow normally like other ambulant people. So eating too much also. Some people have genetic characteristics that they are tall and they are slim like their parents, but their children may become eating more and they are not active in their life. They are not doing exercise, so they will get more weight, and this will affect their uh, uh, their characteristics or their shape finally. Being raised in a certain country cause to speak a certain language, and this is well known, and with a certain accent, and plants in the shade of a big tree will grow taller to reach more light. يعني لو في part of the plant in the shade, it will grow more than those branches that grow in light, because in a triad to reach more light, and so on. So environmental factors like climate, light, temperature, sunshine, and so on will affect will cause a variation in the individuals in a specific species. So the features or the external features vary because of combination of genetic and environment. Both of the genetic and the environmental factors will combine together to affect the person. So the outcome, don't mention in your exam that the outcome because of the genetic variation only or genetic factors only or environmental factors only, but it is a combination of both of them. And keep this rule in your mind all over the time that the variations caused by genetic and environmental causes. For example, a tall parent will pass the gene of being tall to their children. But if their children are not taking enough or an balanced diet or adequate nutrition, finally they will not be tall. They will not grow very well. They will not develop normally. So this is the effect of the environmental. Although they have uh, a genetic characteristics that to be taught, but the environment affected the lifestyle impact or effect will affect their height, and finally they will be either mm, not tall or should be or even short. Another way of looking at this is that although genes decide what characteristics we inherit, the surrounding environment will affect how this inherited gene or inherited characteristics will be shown. And secondly, to the principle of variation, coming the theory of evolution, which is related to Charles Darwin, and we'll take it shortly after a while. So the evolution are the changes that will occur in the individual within a specific species, and this changes maybe because the individual are the environment will affect the individual to make these changes to survive more, to resist more, and stay for a long period of time. So we will take another definition, which is the natural selection. Natural selection is the primary mechanism that drive evolution. What's the natural selection? Natural selection is the process by which a new species arise from existing species. So if you have, we will explain this definitely. So the definition, it is a process. So it is a process by which a new species arise from existing species. And evolution can be defined as a change in the frequency of the phenotype in the population over many generations through a process of the natural selection. So natural selection is the primary mechanism, is the background, the backbone that drives the evolution. Natural selection is the backbone of evolution. So what's the definition of evolution? The changes in frequency of the phenotype in a population over many generations through a process of natural selection, which may result in formation of the new species. So it is the generation, evolution generation of the new species through changes in the frequency of the phenotype, the characteristics, the external characteristics of individuals, group of individuals, over many generations through the process of natural selection. What's a natural selection? It is a process by which a new species arise from existing species. To explain this, we will go directly for this example. Uh, so suppose that this deer, we have light colored one and dark colored one. Every species tend to produce more individuals than can survive to maturity. And they are through reproduction, they are producing a lot of offspring. So this offspring, some changes will occur in some of them, like this dark color. This dark color, by the time the white color at this time number is more than the dark colored deer. But by the time there is a variation, the variation will occur in this deer that the dark colored will acquire characteristics that enabling them to survive more by becoming resistant to infection, by becoming camouflaged so they will not be attacked by predator. They will acquire thick skin, as for example, so they can resist climate changes in the winter, so they can survive more and resist an environment and survive more and breed. Finally, you will get this dark colored deer is survival is more, and this weak light colored thin skinned deer will be distinctive. So this is called natural selection, because this dark deer, they acquire characteristics that enabling them to survive more, and so they can breed and become, these characteristics now become genetically transferred from one generation to another generation, and so they will be more to enabling them for more survival and breed, and they become more resisting to the environment. So coming back, uh, it is the theory of evolution and natural selection is first is observed over years and years, but discussed and investigated thoroughly by Charles Darwin. And the Darwin theory simply is that individual in a species show a range of variation caused by differences in gene. So the individual in a species like human being showing a range of variation, there is a variation. This variation coming if it has a genetic underlying cause, as we informed that variation is a combination of genetic and environmental causes, as we discussed that variation is caused by underlying genetic and environmental causes. So this range of variation, individual with characteristics most suited to the environment, the person or the individual or the animal with the characteristics that most suitable to the environment have higher chance of survival and more chance to reproduce. If the survival is more, so the chance of to reproduce is more. So judging this specific variation happened in this individual will be transmitted to their offspring. So therefore, these characteristics are passed to their offspring at a higher rate, enabling them to live more and reproduce more. Do you understand the point? So there it is like a genetic variation. So we have a special variations that happen in one generation or over generation, different generations, and this variation has a genetic base and environmental base, and this variation will enable the coming generation to survive more and reproduce more, and so they will pass these characteristics to their offspring that will allow them to survive more and more fit to the environment, and we are calling this survival of fittest, yani survival of the generation that best fit to the environment. So this survival of fittest principle, a term used to explain why some organisms succeed in the competitive struggle survival against the members of their population, and organisms survive longer because they are better camouflaged or better suitable for the environment, and this means that they are less likely to be seen by predators and eaten. And if the organism can be camouflaged, so they can hide from predator and they can survive more and uh, reproduce more, and so passing these characteristics to the next generation. So survival will be longer and they are getting opportunity in the exam. في امتحانكم لازم نبقى الخطوات كان كده، يعني the organism will become best fitting to the environment and so survive more and reproduce more, and then passing this allele, which is gene version, to their offspring. For example, This deer live in the warm climate, so have thicker fur than others. This dark colored deer has thicker fur, so they can, in case of in winter time, they can resist cold climate, and their survival will be more than this silver deer, and so they will pass over several generations. You will pass these genetic characteristics to their offspring, that enabling them to survive, to resist the environment, and to be fit for the environment, the best fit for fitting the environment, and then survive more, reproduce more, and then passing this to their offspring and so on. This is a variation as genetic and environmental factor. So there are hundreds of thousands of examples of evolution by natural selection, and you can't possibly be familiar with all of them. However, remember that the same concept you have to understand, and that this is the principle of the survival of fittest, يعني the survival of the individual that are best fitting the environment through changing in their characteristics. So these characteristics will be passed forward for the generation, enabling them to survive more, reproduce, and doing the natural selection. Okay, the next part is a mutation. Mutation, by definition, it is a rare random change in the DNA base sequence that can be inherited. يبقى simply mutations are the changes, random changes in the DNA base sequence. So it is changes in the DNA base sequence. You know the base sequence of DNA: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. And it changes this base sequence has two important characteristics, that they are randomly occurring, and they are rare. They are not common. So mutations is rare or common. It is rare, and occurring in a specific order. No, it is occurring in a random change. What are the changes? It is the changes in the DNA base sequence that have two characteristics: are randomly changing, and it is rare. If a gene become mutated, it says that there is a genetic variant. So the genetic variant, this gene is coding, as we agreed before. The change in genes will lead to changes in the coding protein. So the protein will be changed, and we are calling that there is a genetic variation. The genetic variant code for different shape. This genetic variant, the variant gene, the changed gene, will code for a changed protein because of changing of the amino acid sequence, because of changing of the DNA sequences here. That because we agreed that in the protein synthesis session, that the DNA base sequence will lead to a specific sequence of amino acids, and this specific sequence of amino acids will lead to the production of specific protein. If the DNA base sequence changes, the amino acid sequence will be changed, and then the protein produced will be changed, and so the characteristics will be changed. So finally, this may result in a changing in the phenotype. Why the changing of the phenotype? Because the changing of protein resulting from changing of the amino acid sequences that resulted from the change in the DNA base sequence. Again, definition of the mutation, because it's common in your exam. It is it changes in the DNA base sequences that occurring randomly and rarely. يبقى بطريقة تانية, it is a rare and random change in the DNA base sequence that lead to different amino acid sequence, that lead to different production of protein, either activity or amount, and we will explain this shortly. And this finally lead to changing in the phenotype. So mutation, and I'd like to explain this in details. So please concentrate on this. As we agreed before in the DNA lesson or session, we agreed that the DNA contains coding and non-coding region. And the production of the messenger RNA is starting by non-coding region, where the RNA polymerase enzyme join this non-coding and start to read the specific sequence of base of DNA that code for a specific protein or amino acid sequence and subsequently protein, specific protein. So the DNA containing coding and the non-coding region. So the non-coding region, it doesn't code for any protein synthesis, but the coding region is coding for a specific protein. This is the difference between non-coding and coding. But to start coding for a specific protein and specific amino acid sequences, there should be a start of uh, 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 a start of union between RNA polymerase and the non-coding region. Then they will start the coding process for protein production. So if the mutation occurred in the non-coding region, there will be an effect, and if the mutation occurred in the coding region, there will be another effect. If the mutation occur in the non-coding region, so the process of coding will not start because the RNA polymerase will not join the non-coding region. So the process of coding of protein totally will be cancelled. So this will affect the amount of protein produced. So mutation in the non-coding DNA will change how much protein, the amount of protein produced. There will be no protein produced or decreased at least. But the change in sequence of the coding region of the DNA will lead to a change in the protein. The protein will be produced because the process started by union of non-coding and the RNA polymerase. But the activity of the protein will be affected because of the change in sequence in the coding region of the DNA. Did you get the point now? So we have coding and non-coding area of the DNA. To sum up, if mutation occurs in non-coding area, the process of protein production will not be started or will start partially, so the amount of protein production will be affected. But if mutation occurs in the coding area of the DNA, so there will be changes in the protein. Protein will be produced, but there will be changes in the protein activity, and so the phenotype will be changed. As mutation is contained in the DNA, it can pass from one generation to the next. If mutation happens in the DNA, and this DNA will pass into gametes, so it will pass through different generation. It will pass from one generation to the next generation. So effective mutation in general has no effect, and this is a fact. So mutation is rare, and if it occurs, the effect will be minimal or no effect in the phenotype. So the proteins that mutated gene produce may work just as well as the protein from non-mutated gene. Yani maybe the effect of the mutated gene may be masked by the or compensated by the effect of the other protein production. And this type of mutation will not affect the chance of survival of the species. But mutation rarely lead to development of the new phenotype, and if they do so, most of them have a small effect. Your mutation is a rare changes in the sequence of DNA. The effect of mutation, mostly it has no effect. And if there is rarely it cause an effect, this effect will have a small effect on the organism. And as you, I think you are intelligent enough to understand that this effect could be a good effect or could be bad effect. So the mutations that are rarely occurring and rarely cause the effect and the phenotype may cause maybe good and cause a survival advantage, as we mentioned survival in the natural selection, that the organism or the individual species can survive more and resist more like in the environment, and so they can breed more and passing this survival advantage to their coming generations. So for example, for example, a bird develop a mutation causing them to have a colored feather. This bird will will be attractive to birds of the opposite sex, and so reproduction will be more frequently, and they have to pass this colored feature or characteristics or phenotype to the next generation. So this is a survival advantage, and because it will help this bird to reproduce more and more. The same, like example, if you are reviewing the example of deer, they have thick skin that enabling them to resist cold climate, and they can survive and reproduce more. So some mutations, which is rare and random changes in the sequence, DNA based sequence, can have a good effect, a survival advantage. So outcome may be good, may be bad. Sometimes a mutation will lead to harm changes that can affect the survival of the organism, and they can have a dramatic effect on the body. For example, cystic fibrosis in humans. Cystic fibrosis is a disease in human beings that cause the mucus to be sick, and this in area where mucus is prevalent, like lung and so and other parts of the body. So the management of this sick sputum will be difficult, and the person will suffer a lot. So this is an example of the bad mutation. Causes of mutation is mutation mostly occurring commonly, occurring spontaneously and continuously. Their frequency can increase by exposure to the following, but the frequency can be affected by, but they are occurring spontaneously and continuously by exposure to ionizing radiation like gamma, X-ray, or ultraviolet rays, or exposure to chemical mutagen. Mutagen, yani they are the factor or the chemicals that are causing mutation. Like the most common example is tar in tobacco. We take this before in the briefing session. So if you can review the video, found this. So tar is commonly causing tar is a mutagen and causing a mutation, and mostly this mutation will be dangerous and will have a non-favorable outcome. This may result in a madness. This tar, tobacco, chemical mutations or exposure to ionizing radiation can cause madness of the cell growth. So the cell growth will become uncontrolled. So the cell will continue to grow, and this growth, uncontrolled growth, we are calling it as cancer. And that's why chemical mutagens, we are calling them carcinogen. So carcinogen, they are the chemical mutagen that are causing a cancer. The cell will acquire the mutation will cause the growth of cell is uncontrolled, and the cell will continue to grow while she shouldn't grow, and this will cause a cancer. So this chemical mutation that cause this mutation, outcome of here is good or bad? Yes, excellent, bad, and they are calling this carcinogen. So increased rate of mutation can cause cell to become cancerous, which is why the above are linked to increase the incidence of different type of cancer. This is a relation between mutation and the cancer. So mutation are spontaneously and continuously happening, but there are some factors that will increase their incidence, like exposure to ionizing radiation. Remember this, and exposure to chemical mutagens. These ionizing radiation chemical mutagens may cause the cell out of order, become mad, and the cell growth become uncontrolled. So they grow continuously and they are causing cancer. This cancer, so we are calling this exposure to radiation or chemical mutagens in tobacco, we are calling it carcinogen. Why we are calling this chemical mutagen and chemical carcinogens? Because they are causing a mutation in the cell, and the cell growth become uncontrolled and causing a cancer. Okay, so the last part of this session is antibiotic resistance. Antibiotic, what's the antibiotic? Antibiotic is a chemical substance. Is a chemical substance that can kill or inhibit the growth and the reproduction of bacteria. We have antibiotic are acting on bacteria. They are the chemical substances that are acting, attacking bacteria. Either they are killing bacteria or they are stopping their growth, so inhibiting their growth. So this antibiotic has two are chemicals that have the effect to kill the bacteria or stop their growth. They are extremely useful to human, as some bacteria are pathogenic and they can cause life-threatening disease. of course all of you know that bacteria ممكن تأثر على حياة الناس، بتقتل ناس كتير حول العالم. فالانتيميكروبيال الانتيبيوتيك they can affect the activity of this bacteria either by killing them or stopping their growth, so enabling time for the immune system to attack this bacteria. So bacteria reproduce on average every 20 minutes. And therefore evolution occur much shorter time span. They are continuous evolution, continuous changing, continuous mutation, and this bacteria to resist, to giving order or changing their gene to resist the effect of this chemical in a trial to survive and to resist the environment, and they are passing this variation to their next generation so they can survive more and resist this antibiotic. So by the time the antibiotic will not be able to affect or kill or stop the growth of this bacteria, and this is a big problem. Like all other organisms within the population, there will be variation caused by mutation. The bacteria will mutate their gene, will change the sequence of DNA to produce a protein or to do a phenotype that will be resisting to this antibiotic. A chance of mutation might cause some bacteria to become resistant, and this is a big problem nowadays. When population is treated with this antibiotic, this resistant bacteria will not die and will continue to harm the person. And this is a big problem nowadays. This means that continuous production of less competition from non-resistant bacteria, which are now dead. Therefore, the genes for antibiotic resistance are passed on next generation of these bacteria that are reproducing every 20 minutes, do you imagine? And passing this antibiotic resistance to the next generation. So the next generation will be resistant to the antimicrobial and will harm the human being. Over the time, the whole population of bacteria become antibiotic resistant because of antibiotic resistant bacteria are best studied, suited for their environment. This is a trial from bacteria to survive the environment, to be the fittest, the best fitting the environment by resisting this antibiotic. So they are trying to survive, and you are trying to kill them, but they are harmful bacteria if they are resisting to all antibiotic, so they will harm the human being so much. This is an example of natural selection that humans have helped to develop due to overuse and uncontrolled use actually of antibiotics. The human being, the doctors are or the medical practice that overusing the antibiotic for minor non-serious infection, or for giving for animal while they are not diseased with bacteria, like for viral infection, they are giving antibiotic for viral infection. The antibiotic are used to kill bacteria only; they are not affecting virus, so there is no effect. But you are giving the bacteria the chance to develop resistant strain against this antibiotic. So the overuse, why there is a problem of antibiotic resistance, because there is overuse and uncontrolled use of antibiotic in a situation where they are not really indicated or necessary. For example, for treatment of non-serious infection, routine treatment of animal in the agriculture, failure to finish prescribed course. Some people are taking the antibiotic for 1 day or 2 days. When they are improving, they are stopping. So when they are stopping, some strains of bacteria, they are giving a chance for bacteria to reproduce and doing the mutation and change their characteristics, so become resistant to the antimicrobial. Is this a problem? Yes, because at one time you will found the many types of this bacteria or strain of bacteria, they are resistant and they will harm the human being. An example, what we are calling methicillin. Methicillin is the one type of penicillin. Penicillin is one of the antibiotic. Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus are bacteria that are able to reduce variation to survive and to become resistant to this methicillin. This methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus by itself is very weak. But this methicillin resistant, if they are making the resistant strain, they can survive and they can pass this for next generation to make a very large strain, a very big amount of large strain of this methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus to the different antibiotic. Facing to this will harm a human being because you will not find a medication to treat people. You will find a medication to cure people from this methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Adding to this problem is the problem that the chance of discovery of new antibiotic is very slow. So not the discovery or the creation of the new antibiotic discovered has slowed significantly. The number of new generation of antibiotic is not going so rapidly in the same way, like the development of resistant bacteria. This will cause a problem in the future. We will stop here. I hope that you get the whole information. If you need more, if you need to ask for anything, please contact me either at the Telegram or the WhatsApp at that number. So goodbye for now. We'll meet soon.